I'd like to call this meeting to order, meeting between the school board and the board of supervisors for the budget presentation. I thank everyone for coming out. This is extremely important. It's also our biggest item on the budget. And one thing I'd like to ask, if possible next year, if we could get a copy, a rough draft prior to the meeting instead of, maybe shock effect is the right word, but to see it a little bit ahead of time so we could maybe have some questions put together for you. Kathy, you have something to say?
Just welcome and thanks for having us here tonight. Thank you for the nice dinner. We always look forward to getting together with you and talking about our budget and going over what's important to us. And I think Mr. Drescher has a lot of good information to share tonight, so I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
Chairman, Madam Chair, thank you very much. So again, we'll go through a little bit of historical stuff, like we do every year, of how we've gotten to where we're at and provide a little basic information. I first want to give an update on capital facilities. It's going to be a brief one, which is good news because I think obviously the last 15 years we've made a lot of progress on addressing our facility needs. School board recently entered into a contract with Oliver Webb, Pappas, and Rudy Architects. If the name sounds familiar, that's the same firm that designed Skyline High School and did the renovation work to turn the junior high into Warren County High School and did King Crosby Stadium. But the school system is looking to replace the old HVAC system at AS Roads with a new energy efficient system. Replace the old membrane and shingle roofs on the building, which are well past their prime. School system has a couple $1 million ballpark left over from the middle school project where we came in under budget. We've also got ballpark about $500,000 in proper money that's earmarked for school facilities. So we've got a little bit to work with. I think at least for now, that's what you're working with in approaching the project. Is that correct, Greg?
Right.
So you'll hear probably a little bit more over the next few months. I think you're looking to get started maybe this summer. Is that correct?
Actually, doing the roof before then.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the first thing going out to bid, and that should be happening very soon.
Yep, this week, next week.
So you'll see a little bit more on that project. I don't expect you to read everything on this list. This is the capital improvement plan that the board adopted. This is our 2-year 2018 to 2020 capital improvement plan. Highlighted in yellow are school board projects that are in the plan. Now, the capital improvement plan is a recommendation plan. It's not a budget plan. It doesn't guarantee funding, but it helps us understand what the needs of the county are. In this case, the needs of the school system. Of course, AS Roads, the $3.5 million was there for FY19. Next down the road, Leslie Fox Kaiser, HVAC upgrade and roof replacement. That school was built in the mid-70s.
1977.
77. And it's those systems are nearing the end of their useful life.
One day this year.
We also have, of course, Skyline High School, Warren County High School. They were completed in 2007. The parking lots and some of the play resurfacing needs to occur. That's in the budget of the proposed capital improvement budget. Warren County High School, some improvements to improve access to the secondary gym at the school. That's in there out at 2023. Maintenance and food service to renovate part of the 15th Street School. I know part of the concept is to potentially revise the plans. So we put one of the alternative education programs in part of that space. So you'll see on the board agenda, we're going to revise the scope and the plan a little bit down. It'll be a lot less than this number. That's probably if you went out and bid out everything. I think they're looking at possibly doing some of that work in-house. But the concept has been to sell the building on Commerce Avenue and use the proceeds of that to be able to renovate the space. To be able to do that, they may need to come to the board, basically borrow that money, do the renovation, move out and sell the building, and they can repay the board. The other item is a new elementary school, and that's been pushed out. beyond 5 years. One of the reasons that's on there is in order for the county to accept proffers from residential development, we need items to be on the capital improvement plan. I know Frederick County's been talking about a new elementary school, and that number is between 25 and 30 million, which is a little scary, but probably by the time 5 years, whatever you get here. Elementary school numbers have been flat in the last few years, so it's given us some breathing room. Back in 2004 or 5, when we originally adopted the capital improvement plan for the 2 high schools, we thought that school would have to have been open probably now or 5 years ago. So we've got a little bit of breathing room. So it just gives you an idea of what some of the projects are out there that down the road we'll have to look at trying to fund. But right now, the only thing on the table the current year is AS Roads, and we've got ballpark $2.5 million available towards that. We put together some numbers on historical school funding as to comparison. This chart shows schools' local appropriation since 2004, 2005 to the current fiscal year and tracks. It shows you the amount of increase, and we're getting close to 35 million local appropriation. And I believe, is that operating and debt combined?
It must be debt.
It's operating debt combined. This chart shows the last 10 years, the actual increase, the percentage increase of the budget. There's that 10-year average. This is the current year we're in and the percentage increase that provided. This, of course, was the Great Recession, where we asked them to go back and cut their budget, and then after that, provide them 2 flat years, and Greg can talk towards that. But especially the state numbers really haven't even gotten back to pre-recession numbers. And we saw that at the VACO conference last. They were talking about that, is that the state really hasn't stepped up and provided school funding. But the average for 10 years has been over $500,000, or about 3.17%. Last year, we took fund balance out to make this commitment of $1,214,414, about 5.19%. This chart shows school budget versus county budget. This is state dollars, everything included. So the percentage of the total budget has been fairly consistent, about 61, 62% in that range. This chart shows schools' local appropriation. The blue is operating. The red is a combination of debt and operating. So the delta here, this is capital. As you can see, back in 2004 or 5, before we embarked on building the 2 high schools and then renovating the other middle school and now building the second middle, the debt piece was pretty small at that time. So that piece now is pushing $10 million. This chart shows the percentage of the total budget, just the local school appropriation. It actually is the highest since we've been recording the data, about 32 or so percent, the local appropriation of the total county budget. So, significant progress in the last 15 years on capital needs from that original CIP. We've renovated E. Wilson Morrison. That was the first project we did. Then we built Scotland High School, converted the junior high to a high. We renovated what was the old Warren County High School. It's now Scotland Middle. We built a new middle school, and now we've recently completed renovations to Ressie, and of course, Rhodes is next on target. I think what we talked about last year is, again, agreement on the need to shift focus to addressing the operational needs of the system over the next 5 years until we need the next elementary school. We've put so much focus and so much money, resources into capital improvements, and I guess what we heard from Greg last year is, hey, we need to concentrate on the human capital and the rest of operations, whether it's transportation, maintenance, teachers, facilities, and human capital. Added a couple maps in here. I know you can't look at the small numbers, but each of these blue dots is a teacher address. So here's Warren County in the middle. All these blue dots are people that have worked for this system this past year. Now you'll see we've got a couple that these were probably people in transition that they put down their address and they're in the process of moving up to the community, but that's the address we had at the time. But one of the things you'll see is that we cast a little bit of a wide net for staff, and of course a lot of them are landing outside of Warren County's boundaries. We also looked at where did our teachers, Greg, how many teachers you lose last year?
It's 72 instruction staff. Some of those aren't.
Some retirements.
Yeah.
And some left.
Actually, a couple deaths. But
So in red is 7 to 11. Orange is 4 to 6. So Frederick and Loudon were the larger the jurisdictions that recruited the most of our staff. But you're all the way into Fairfax, Prince William, Culpeper, Fauquier. Obviously, these folks have moved out of the area to go there.
Are these full-time? Or are they
full-time, yeah, full-time.
We wanted to look at where are we losing staff to.
Does Frederick include Winchester City?
Winchester City is in green, so that's a 2.
Okay.
2 people went to work for City of Winchester. This one, we put together, actually just put together this today, and I'm going to zoom in a second. Your new positions, 80, originally it was 72 of the new teacher thing, but now you got 80 licensed positions. And these dots represent where those people are coming from. And when you zoom in, it's interesting. So 28 new hires located in Warren County, 52 outside of Warren County. That's what we get into this telling thing, and part of that is, okay, so I moved to Stevens City, with all the Stevens City dots, or the Strasburg dots, or the Winchester dots. Then after about 3 or 4 years, I decided, wait a minute, I could make more money and stay here in the community that I'm living in. Greg, I know you all put together some numbers. After like 4 years, what was your retention rate when we were looking at the visioning process?
Low.
Below 30–40%.
Yeah.
And part of that is, I think, you don't bring them here into our community initially. Later, the propensity to lose them is much greater if they're living in one of these other places. That's more of a housing need issue, not a budget issue, but putting the data together was interesting. Where are people living that are coming to teach here?
What we did, I'll just interject. I mean, we've tracked our new hires, how many, when they come here, how many are living in Warren County. And it's been above 60% are not living in Warren County for a number of years. So this is long term. This isn't just recent.
Some of the county budget goals and drivers, this is stuff the Board of Supervisors talked about. Maintaining current level of service, staying competitive with staff salaries. As you all know, we jointly and separately did a pay study with PayPoint to look at compensation for the school system staff and the county staff, and trying to look at implementation of that. Maintaining progress on a few capital improvement projects we have left. Of course, trying to hold the line with real estate taxes, the taxpayers that are funding our operations. County just gave a 2.5% step increase for all county employees effective January 1 of 2019. So that's 6 months of that salary that's in the current budget. We've got another 6 months just to pick up for next year. We'd estimated health insurance increase. I'm proud to say, or pleased to say, it looks like that's going to be about 3.1%, so we'll have a little bit of money on that end. I know you guys have not received your renewal yet, so keep your fingers crossed. I mentioned we have $1.2 million in money in the current budget that is really, it's fund balance money. It's not budgeted revenue that's being expended. It's something that's about the equivalent of 3 pennies of the tax rate that we're going to have to look at making up in our revenue for this year. And you all use that. So instead of doing like a 2% January 1, you gave a 1% last July. You did a step increase for eligible employees effective in January, and then you've got some, you did a 10% increase for supplemental pay rates, things like that, coaches.
Primarily coaches.
from our head coaches. Talking about staying competitive, we wanted to put down, so what does each 1% of salary increase cost? For the school system, about $383,000. It's almost a penny. Now, if there's state money coming in, obviously that can offset some of that, but when the state gives a 2% salary increase for teachers, that's not a full 2%. That's only the SOQ positions and doesn't include a lot of your other support staff and stuff.
And their 50-some% share of it.
Correct. So, and for the county staff, Andre's estimate is about $152,000 for each 1% that we grant. I want to throw this up. This is our current tax rates of Warren and our neighbors. Fauquier 98.982, Rappahannock 73, 71, 70, 66, 64, and 61. Warren County, of course, we just went through a reassessment. The reassessment changed about 10.4%. So one of the things that, we've got to get through equalization, but one of the things that the board will have to do is equalize the rate. So an equalized rate is going to be approximately 6 cents lower than this, and then any increase would have to be bumped up. Of course, one of the big impacts, we are now one of the few communities in the state of Virginia, more than 20% of our tax revenue comes from state property, state corporation commission, whether it's Dominion Power Plant, the power lines, the gas lines, the railroads that cross this community. That money is based on what your rate is and what the assessment ratio is. That's two big factors. So if you cut the rate, you're cutting what all those, the 20% number gets cut right off the bat. And then 64, Shenandoah, and 61, Frederick. Again, talked about staying competitive. We did the pay point study. We were trying to look at hiring and keeping quality staff members, staying competitive, the same issues the school board has. So the board approved the study back in July, included all county and school system staff. It stems from input and comments received from department heads, constitutional officers, and employees regarding recruitment and retention issues. This is the county's preliminary salary recommendations. Raise the salary positions that are below the 1218 living wage number. That costs about $25,000. Raise the salary positions substantially below market. So 30 53-hour fire and rescue positions, $278,000. 56 40-hour part-time general positions, $248,000. 30 40-hour full-time general positions, $174,000. 22 social service positions, $155,000. 6 35-hour full-time general positions, $38,000. 7 50-hour part-time general positions, $34,000. A total of 151 positions, which cost just under $1 million. Also, to raise the salary positions well below market, 21 social service positions, 16 35-hour positions, 10 40-hour positions, another $142,000. In total, 207 positions, almost $1.1 million on the county side alone as far as the implementation. We know there's no way you could do that in any 1 year, probably not even 2, so we'll have to look at trying to phase it in over several years. But the other thing is you can't do it in 4, 5, or 6 because you'll be outside the market, you'll lose ground to our neighbors. We had a social service position that an individual left and went to Frederick, and I think the number was well into a 5-figure difference. It's hard to compete. I want to throw this up. This was our 2017 state comparable report, comparing Warren County to its neighboring jurisdictions of Clark, Fauquier, Frederick, Page, Rappahannock, and Shenandoah. Using data included in the state's report, Warren County ranks 5th out of the 7 jurisdictions in spending at an average of $3,923.01 per capita. We're 7th out of 7 in educational spending for operations at $1,204.22 per capita, not per student, per capita. We're 6th out of 7 in law enforcement spending and $123.16. Again, operational, that doesn't count debt service on public safety building. So based on the tax rates of our neighbors, we've got the 3rd lowest real estate rate at 66 cents per 100. So So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Greg and let him talk about the school budget.
I'd like to thank everyone for allowing us to come tonight and share with you. I always feel like I'm not giving wonderful news when I do this, but it's important. This is a story of what it takes to educate children in Warren County, and what you're going to hear tonight is what we believe are our basic needs to get the job done, and it is a big number. But I decided to start with the big number. Let's go ahead and get it out of the way. We are unsure of our insurance rates at this point. That $309,000 is an estimated 6%. It could be that. I had Buck check today. We got back that they are still working on it, so we should have it by the end of next week. Electricity costs is the other non-labor piece that we know we're going to be impacted with. If rates continue as they have been for the remainder of the year, we will need to do something in the range of about $225,000 with our budget for next year for electricity. So those rates have impacted us. So those are the two things outside of personnel that we know we need to deal with. We're unsure of insurance. We're pretty confident with the electricity rate being somewhere in that range. So those are the two, roughly $535,000 of money. Yes.
Is Skyline High School on the town's electricity?
All of them are.
All of them.
So, getting into the personnel piece. One of the things that has happened this year is the governor, and I guess then the House and the Senate have done their own versions of it. But basically what's being recommended for schools is there's new money in the biennium budget to support a 5% raise over those 2 years. We did not have any of that money last year, and we did a 2% raise. Because we did that, we have pretty much done our share of the cost of a 5% raise total. So this is good news. So to give the remainder of that 5% raise a 3% cost of living for 2019-20, there is no impact to the local budget to do that. So we can give a 3% increase, and because we covered that cost last year, we took care of the requirement to pay that our fair share of it. So that's a positive. That's a good thing. The one thing, and I'm not sure how these numbers play into your numbers, Doug, but to complete the promised step increase from 2019, is that part of your 1.2?
1.2 was what we gave you this year.
So this is separate. So this number, in order to continue that, we did a half step increase to finish that, and then to give the next eligible group their step increase is $510,000. That's what that costs. I'd like to take this moment just to say thank you for allowing us to do the compensation study. It was very, very helpful. It's one of the things that we did in-house for a number of years, but getting their information from a third party that was able to look at the whole market was very helpful. The bottom line number, we have the same data. I think we passed it on to you, the whole study. You have to look at it. If you want me to break it out a little differently for you to look at, I'm happy to do that. But I just am giving you the bottom line number here, which is the $2.325 million. To do all the adjustments, similar to what Doug just showed for the county staff, that's the cost for making all the adjustments for school staff. And I would make a point that in that it is all staff other than administrators. We're not making any recommendation for administrative changes to salary. So we know that that's not doable. We tried to take a look at what was the main reason we did the study is because of the loss of teachers. And I'm going to go into that in the next slide a little deeper. But to start working on that, we're concentrating, the request we have is to concentrate our work from teachers that have been here 11 years to 25 years. Because what we do is we train them and they go. So we need to start addressing those salaries. And then taking a look at support staff, and the first group we would look at there would be bus drivers. They're one of our lowest paid groups. Cafeteria folks, instructional assistants were the others. So that's 1.89 million to what I'm terming as phase one, to be able to hit those teachers from years 5 through 25. Years 11 through 25. Phase two, in the subsequent year, we'll be taking a look at teachers from the beginning of this, from 0 to 10, and then additional support staff. And then phase three, we'll be taking a look at those teachers from 25 to 30. That's 423. So that's the breakdown of a potential 3-year plan to do that. The other thing that PayPoint gave us as information was something we also already knew. Is we feel like when we saw that there are many things that we're doing in Warren County where we have programs in place, we just don't have them as deep. We don't have as much. And they recognize that as well, and what their recommendation was is that we needed 63 more teaching staff. That's a huge number. But when you do the comparison about the number of pupils we have and the number of teachers that we have, and teachers can be guidance counselors, math and science and reading specialists, English second language specialists. There's a lot of things that teacher encompasses. And that's the areas that we're lacking in. It's not just the classroom teacher, it's all those supports that help our students. So we took a look. I have this year, I always ask schools to not give me pie in the sky stuff. And they didn't, but they had 28 requests for 28 people in our schools. And that was a cost of $2.58 million. I feel like we need to start chipping away at this. And so that's where that $267,000 is. To start chipping away, that represents about 4 positions and some of the most critical needs. So the total you see on that page is $2.4 million. That includes the potential insurance rates, electricity costs, doing the promised step increase, and then trying to take a look at phase one for teachers and support staff, and then trying to take a look at adding some additional staff at some very key places. It's a lot of money.
Great.
Yes.
Can I put in something?
Yes.
Go ahead to the next slide. Maybe you're going to say it. Okay. No. I think it's important to note that even with those figures, the pay study only took us to the 60th percentile of our competitors.
For everybody but teachers. Teachers, it's above the 60th. Yeah, but that is true. For everybody, for half of our staff, it's at this, and I think that's what the county did too, right?
60%.
60th percentile. So why did we want to do this compensation study? We're in our 7th consecutive year of needing to hire 60 or more instructional staff. This past year, as we just mentioned, we had 72. So how does that, where do we want to be, or where should we be? A healthy organization can certainly have turnover rates of about 10%. If we were at a 10% rate for our instructional staff, we'd be in the 40-person range. And you might say that doesn't seem like a huge number, the difference between 40 and 60 or 40 and 72. It's a monster. It is. We do not have the personnel to train and support people that are new that many times in a row. So for 7 years, 7 times 60, if it was just 60, we'd have 360 new people coming in. So it's I'm sorry, I did that wrong, 420 new people coming in. Just in the past 3 years, we've had a substantial number of new folks, and some of them are not even staying. And I just give some numbers in our schools. The majority of instructional staff are inexperienced. and that's across the board. 74% of the teachers at Skyline Middle School have 5 or less years of experience. 68 at E. Wilson Morrison, 58 at Leslie Fox Kaiser. No school has less than 43% of its teachers have 5 years of experience or less. In a healthy distribution of staff, it would be 20%. And a lot of things happen when this occurs. And what scares me, and I didn't write it down, but I'm going to say it out loud. We look closely at our academic achievement for our kids. That's why we're here. That's what we're here to help them learn, give them have successful skills. And with so many experienced teachers, and this is not anybody's fault. It just takes a few years to know what to do. I mean, it just does. It just does. And with so many experienced teachers, what I am seeing, and I've seen it the last 3 years, or what we are seeing, is we're seeing a downturn in our academic achievement. Especially in places like Skyline Middle School, with 75%, 74% of the teachers being that inexperienced, you're just not going to be at the top of your game. And what happens, once that 5 years comes, 60% of the people are living somewhere else anyhow. They're just not staying. I may sound a little dramatic on a couple things here this evening. I don't mean to, but it's almost crisis. This is a big deal to have this many new folks at all of our schools all of the time. And those of us that are in the schools every day, we're seeing that is impacting what we're able to do for our kids. And we're seeing a difference. And I think that's the primary reason. We have a lot of good folks doing a lot of good things. But when they don't stay, we're a wonderful training ground. We've been that for a number of years. I'm trying to frame something to help our community understand what I think is an important thing. When a student leaves high school and they stay here, they're going to be an active member in our community for 44 years. That's a study. I mean, they're going to be here. A successful graduate has a positive impact, and an unsuccessful graduate can have a negative impact. And schools make the difference. It's a decision that we need to make. Unfortunately, any school system is not going to be able to catch and erase the ills of childhood trauma or severe family issues, poor parenting. We're not going to catch them all. But the better our schools are, the more we're going to catch. So when we have enough people to manage and run effective programs beginning in preschool, we have a great preschool program. We have over 100 kids in it. You know how many we should have in it? Over 200. And we have a good program, but it's not big enough. We need more to support all the kids. 42% of our kids are on free and reduced lunch. That means they're coming from low-income families, and we know that they're good people. They love their kids just as much as you and I do, but they need supports to help them help their kids. And that's where it starts in preschool. Each child we're able to make a difference with makes a difference in our community for 44 years. You only have to look at the newspaper this week and see a couple of young people that made poor decisions. And you wonder, I wonder all the supports they did get while they were in school in our community and what it would have been like if there would have been more there for them. We're not going to catch everybody. We're not going to get every single person, but we're going to get more if our programs are deeper and stronger. If we don't fix them, just like some of these folks that are in the paper this week, they're still in our community. We're still paying for them. It just costs more. So we need to have enough counselors, reading and math specialists, a big one, and Linda, I don't mean to pick on you, but you sit on CPMT, the emotional and mental health supports that we see every single day. There is a dramatic change in the last 10 years. There has been a dramatic change in the mental and emotional health supports that we need to give our kids. It's big. we've had, and I'll pick on Lisa a little bit. She was a principal at Ressie Jeffries, and she'll be the first to say that as principal at Ressie Jeffries 8 years ago, and she's helping us out by being a principal for a short time at E. Wilson Morrison. What would you say? Is it different?
Completely different.
Completely different world.
Completely different.
It's just stresses of the society, whatever it is, but there is a marked difference in the type of supports we need to give these students. And we're expecting a classroom teacher to do that all day long. And they can't, especially when, what did I say at your school? 68% of them are 5 years old. They don't have those skills yet. So it's a big deal. We have programs like advanced placement, AP courses. Absolutely, they're great. The problem is you go to our neighbors, they have 2 and 3 times as many AP classes as we do. They have additional people. That's where that 63 comes in. They have additional teachers that are able to do that. We have dual enrollment. Kids getting college credit while they're in high school, saving their parents' dollars to go to college, or getting degrees while they're still in high school. They're great. We have those. You go to our neighbors, they'll have 3 times as many dual enroll courses as we offer. So we have the programs, we just don't have as deep and as many. That's that number, 63. So all those things support more students. Fine arts, we have good fine arts programs. They're not as deep and as broad. And those of you that are in the arts or in music know the amazing connection that can make for a child that keeps them in school and interested. Oops, did it wrong. Well, I'll just read what I was going to say. So this study is not just about paying people more money. It's about being competitive, strengthening our schools, and ensuring we're graduating as many highly successful young people as possible. Many of us in this room have been here for a long time. I'm well into my 3rd decade. I'm an old guy now. But I've watched 6 decades, some of us way longer.
Yeah, someone's
But we've seen what it looks like when the supports are there or we're up to speed with what's around us and when we're not. And I just really encourage us to take a look at looking at this as an investment. There was one study, and I think I shared it with this group probably 3 years ago. For every $1 invested in a school, it gets returned $11. Now it seems nebulous because there's no money exchanging hands. It's not like we're walking down the street and getting $11 from every kid that graduated. But it's a real amount when you think about a quality, successful young person coming out, getting a job, buying a house, supporting all the local businesses, or a young person coming out that ends up in the newspaper and is going to spend how many years in a jail or prison, and most don't do that. But they require a lot of social services, they require more mental health, they require more physical health. So those are the things I'm trying to come up with a way to frame this so that we know it's tax dollars, but it's also an investment. It's also what helps our community be strong and vibrant, and we see the difference. This chart you've seen before. I'll show you again. It's probably hard to see it. Warren County is in the green, and it's all related to this line right here, the composite index we hear about all the time. And it's rank order. What I did is I took all of the counties or localities in Virginia that are in the 0.4 range. That's who our comparatives are in terms of statewide. Then in the yellow are all of the jurisdictions that touch us. That's who we compare ourselves to. If you look at local per pupil, because that's what we control here, we got above 4,000. We hadn't been there for a while, maybe ever. Everybody above us should be spending, the way that state has this set up, should be spending less per pupil than us in the local. And everybody below us should be spending more because their composite index is more. The kind of numbers speak for themselves, and that's the reality we are at. So, based on those things. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. If there's, and Mr. Murray, if there's specific other data that you'd like me to put together, I would be happy to do that. The pay point, just like for you guys, gave us an awful lot of data. We've done a pretty good analysis of it, put together some potential pay scales that we could enact. But if there's other budget data that would be helpful to you, state funding, let's go back to the very beginning, is in order to get the state funding that we need to do this piece, we need to do this piece. If we don't do that 3%, we will not get the money.
Greg, a point to be made, because I was part of an implementation team that brought a manufacturing plan here. One of the things they look at is the schools.
Absolutely.
They look at the quality of the schools, they look at medical care, and they look at tax rates and the political environment of the area. And any one of those items could chase someone away. It's critical to be able to meet the needs of an incoming manufacturer.
That goes for the hospital industry too. I know Mr. Rosen could tell you when new doctors are being recruited, they want to know about the schools, and most of the new doctors that come to this area, they'll live in a surrounding county.
Parents are smart, and they look at the availability of programs for their kids. They do. I mean, we've got great folks. I'll stand our folks up against anybody else's. We've got great teachers. We've got great administrators. We just don't have enough that stay, and we don't have enough of them, and that makes the difference. And that's who we are. We're doing good things. I mean, I always hate to give this message because I always feel like it's negative, but we're doing great things. Sometimes I think that's worked against us a little bit because we've done a lot with the amount we do have. Yeah. But I think what I'm seeing, and I'm happy to show it to you, is we're seeing a decline in student achievement, and I directly relate it to, because I can point it to, we have entire grade levels or entire teams that have 3 or less years of experience. Those folks aren't doing as well as the ones that have been here 7, 8, 9, 10. It just takes a little while to learn. It's like any skill. I would assume, I have never been one, but a lawyer or I've built houses, done carpentry. The very first time I did it, I wasn't as good. It took me a little bit to get it. So that's the same thing. So, all right. I don't know.
I think you did a great job presenting the information on stuff.
Happy to try to answer any questions. If you have any?
I think we've gotten to the crisis mode.
Anyone have anything for Greg?
And if there's
Or
any
for
specific,
Doug.
or specific information that you want more information about, I would be happy to, we'll put it together. That's helpful. Silence the room.
Silence is gold.
So, where do we go from here as far as, now the General Assembly is short sessions, the next couple of weeks we'll wrap up with General Assembly, quantify exactly what state dollars we're going to be receiving, both on our side for constitutional officers and your side on the school budget. We're a little behind, we're having to meet with our outside agencies on February the 28th. We've got a work session on March 5th at the tail end of our board meeting. That's where we'll present revenue figures and start talking about real numbers and where we're heading. It's a real short turnaround to go from March 5th to the 26th when we've got a special meeting to advertise the budget. So we'll be trying to work closely with you to see, you know, again, we've tried to the extent possible to hold the line on all our departments. We do have some increases, obviously, with the insurance and the second half of the salary increase to build in, and then see what kind of money, what kind of funds we have available to start looking at things.
And we
additional.
totally understand the situation that the county is in, and I just thought we needed to present what we believe is our need.
Cause and effect.
Again, we made significant strides to focus in. I know there are a lot of folks that didn't think when we threw out the capital improvement plan. I think at the time it talked about, having to raise taxes 20-some cents, and we didn't have to do that because the board was committed to starting to put money aside. When new industries came on, we dedicated those funds towards the capital improvement plan, where you're able to get the meals tax passed, which all that money was going towards capital improvements. Now it's about shifting focus and trying to address some of these shortfalls, and you all realize we have shortfalls on our end as well. But hopefully over the next 2 to 3 years, we can make significant progress at addressing those needs.
Like you said, we made a significant, come a long way, but Mr. Drescher said we're in a crisis mode, I feel like we need a little boost, something to kind of get us up a little bit where we can compete better for those families.
I think on the flip side, the hard part, you look back over the last 20 years, we've had, the Family Dollars, the Ferguson Enterprise, the Cisco, you have new stuff happening and coming into the community. And since 14, when the power plant opened, things have been a little slower. But that means you have to look at your existing tax base. You don't have that new money, so to speak, coming in. So that's, part of it is growing the tax base. That's one of the components. But that's, unfortunately, it's a longer roll. It takes more time to be able to do that. But that's why every restaurant, every business that comes in the community is throwing more dollars towards education, particularly with the meals tax. Other questions? Comments?
School's closed.
Thanks for the announcement.
They started doing something?
If they already put
I
that
just
out.
got the announcement.
You just
Well, obviously, we're, to the school board, anytime you have any questions, we're available, and I'm sure Greg will be available to the board as well. I do have a PDF of your salary study I can get out to the board. With that, Mr. Chair, I think we're
I
good.
think we're adjourned.
Thank you.